Today, I hope to answer the question, why do our knives go dull so fast? Here's a myth that a lot of people tell themselves: my knife isn't sharp, I must need finer sharpening grits. But the truth is, most of us are over sharpening our knives. It sounds crazy, right? Today I'm gonna show you how I get my knives as sharp as I want them to be, and how you can too with just a couple of tweaks to how you sharpen. So what are we doing wrong? Well, most people think that their knife should be able to do 3 things if it's been sharpened correctly. Cut through paper like this, slice tomatoes one-handed, super thin so you can see through them. And 3, if it's really sharp, it should be able to shave the hair right off of your arm. And now in the real world though, if you're doing these things on a daily basis, you're probably a weirdo. The first step is to decide what you're using your knife for the most. There are 4 different basic edge types, and picking the right one is critical. And because of science, we're gonna show you what they look like under a microscope as we go along. The first edge type is a working edge, and it's for boxes or twine or rope or zip ties. You might actually be over sharpening your knife if you're doing these types of tasks on a daily basis. Or you might want an outdoor edge, which is better for processing animals or doing campcraft tasks. Or maybe you need a good edge for your kitchen blades so that you can slice food well. And the 4th type is a good high polish edge, which is great for just showing off. So to demonstrate some of these concepts today, I am using a sharpener from Wicked Edge called the WE66 Obsidian, and I absolutely love this knife sharpener. They are sponsoring this video. I just really appreciate how easy it is to use this system and the results that I get from it. So of course I'm gonna tell you it's awesome, because it is. So if you're using a knife mostly for opening boxes, cutting through tape, plastic wrap, zip ties, cutting up cardboard, then you probably want to do what's called a working edge on your knife. So Wicked Edge makes these awesome handles that have the grits built into them. And to get this particular edge on a knife, you might need to go down as far as 200 to work out any nicks. If you've hit some rocks or some metal with your knife and there's some nicks in it, you would work those out with 200, then proceed to 600, 800, and then finish the knife with 1,000 grit. Since this knife is not all that bad, I'm gonna start off with 800 and then hit it with 1,000 to finish it off. So to make sure I got my angle set right, I'm gonna actually put a little bit of ink along the blade of the knife and then set my angle appropriately so that when I make a pass with the stones, it removes all of the ink right up to the very apex of the blade. In this way, I know that I have the knife exactly dialed in on the sharpener, and I can note what numbers on the dial for next time to make setup really fast. So going up to 1,000 grit will actually give you micro serrations on the blade itself, which means just like little teeth that helps grip into those materials like tape and plastic and cardboard. It's a nice durable edge for those kinds of tasks, and it's easy and quick to touch it up whenever you need to. So that's how you get a nice durable working edge on this knife. As you can see under the scope, there's some really nice micro serrations right there that helps it really grip into the material. Now, if what you're after is a kitchen knife that's gonna perform really well, something that has enough toothiness to cut into gristle on meat or to cut through vegetables, but also be refined enough for herbs or fish, then what we wanna do is get to a 1,500 grit level of sharpening. So this knife was used a lot with pull-through sharpeners, which gave it some nicks and scratches. So I took it from 200 to 600. So now I'm gonna do about 20 passes at 800. So most kitchen knives tend to be made from very hard steel, so using a higher grit stone will actually help prevent it from chipping out. Each time I step to a finer grit, it's working out all of those scratches from the previous grit and refining the edge even more. And now I'll do about 20 passes with 1,000 grit. It's not just about sharpness of a knife, it's also about the edge retention or the durability of the edge. So getting the pairing of the knife and what you're using it for and the stones and the grit that you're ending with really makes a big difference as to how long the edge is gonna last. I've been sharpening knives for the better part of 30 years, and this is the most fun I've ever had sharpening on a system, ever. And there you go, a wicked sharp kitchen knife in just a few minutes, and I know that this is gonna hold up and it's gonna be really, really nice in the kitchen. So for a great outdoor edge, what you want to have is a little bit of toothiness in the edge, but you want to have the bevel slightly rounded and polished from stropping. This will give you a very durable edge for bushcrafting and outdoor tasks. If you're going to be doing a lot of hunting and fishing, you'll want to take your edge to about 1,000 grit and then finish it off with a strop, rounding over that bevel just a little bit and polishing it. If you're going to be doing a lot of bushcrafting tasks where there's a lot of wood carving involved, you could take it up to a 1,500 grit, use a 6 micron lapping film, and then use the 4 and 2 micron strops to finish off the blade and make it really, really nice for wood crafting. And that is exactly what I'm gonna do. So since my knife was not terribly dull, I hit it with the 1000 grit. Now I'm gonna go up to the 1500 grit and do about 20 passes on that. So with the 6 micron lapping film on these glass platens, I'm ready to take the scratches out of this knife. You wanna make sure that before you start, you want to wipe down the edge of your knife to get some of that residual grit so it doesn't get stuck in the lapping film and keep scratching your knife at that grit level. Does that make sense? Be careful when you're wiping off the blade to make sure your fingers are below the edge. So I'm going up and away from the edge so I don't cut the lapping film. And just about 20 passes on this knife and I'm already seeing a really nice mirror edge starting to develop, which is really cool. So one thing that's super important is actually cleaning your blade off before you do any stropping, because you don't want any of that grit that's left over contaminating the edge and keep scratching it. So you want to use rubbing alcohol and just very carefully clean off your blade so that none of that gets contaminated. Now I'm gonna start with the 4 micron and then move to the 2 micron to finish it off. And I'm actually gonna bring this, I'm gonna bring my angle in just a little bit so that I'm not rounding over that edge I just worked so hard on. I'm gonna do up and away so it doesn't cut into the strop. This emulsion is actually suspended diamond particles. So you're putting diamond particles into these leather strops, and that's what's doing the polishing work on the blade. Once you've done your stropping with 4 microns, then you want to clean off the blade really well and proceed to 2 microns. We don't want any cross-contamination between grits, so we want to do a really nice job of cleaning off the blade before we proceed further. Now I'm ready for the 2 micron emulsion stropping. Same process, up and away. The edge is so beautiful on this knife and it is insanely sharp. The thing is it's so fast to do this. Once you have your settings figured out, just touching up your knife and getting it to this level of sharpness is so quick. As you can see under the scope, it's just got a beautiful, smooth, refined finish. This is gonna hold up really well for bushcrafting tasks, for wood carving, for processing animals. This is gonna be an excellent finish. Just seeing the light fly off of that edge is so cool. It's very addicting. Because I can't resist, it's so fun. So I went from 200 to 600 to 800 to 1000 to 1500, used the 6 micron lapping film, and then went to the 4 micron emulsion on the strops, then the 2 micron emulsion on the strops. That is how I got this incredible outdoor edge on this knife. I've had this knife since 1997. It has never been this sharp. And sometimes with your knives, you just want the edge to look insanely nice. Super high polish, absolutely gorgeous. And this is how you do that. I recently picked up the new Benchmade tagged out, but the knife edge doesn't look as nice as I know it could be. So we're gonna fix that. Since this knife is very new, it doesn't have any scratches or anything in it, so I'm not gonna start all the way back at 200 grit. But I am confident that with this setup, if I was to wreck the edge with 200 grit and work my way all the way up, that I could probably do it in about 30 minutes. I went over the blade with about 20 passes at 1500 grit. Now I'm gonna switch to the 6 micron lapping films. So these films are really easy to apply. There's actually a piece of glass that's embedded into these handles, and all you gotta do is just peel these off like a sticker and stick them on the glass. The really important thing to remember when you're working with these really high grits in the micron level is cleanliness. You want to make sure that you're using rubbing alcohol, wiping down the blade, wiping down your fingers, so you don't get any stray 1000 grit particles working their way into the emulsion and just keep re-scratching that blade. When you're trying to get a mirror finish, you have to be very clean. So with these lapping films, you can actually scrub them against the blade in a horizontal fashion to actually polish them out. So these 6 micron lapping films will actually very quickly eliminate those 1500 grit streaks in the blade. All right, we're done with the 6 micron lapping films. We can now move on to stropping. You want to actually back off on your angle a little bit because that leather that's in those strops is going to conform to the blade a little bit and round it just enough on that bevel. And what that does is it actually wears away the metal on the bevel and makes it nice and round and smooth. So it's a smooth transition. That will make a very high polish edge, but also an edge that is very strong. All right, at 4 microns, it's already just shining like the sun off of this edge. I'm gonna put a little 2 micron emulsion on these strops. And there we go, an absolutely perfect mirror finish on this edge of the blade. It is incredible. This thing looks gorgeous. Could not ask for a more beautiful edge than this. It is so pretty. So that's how you make a knife really look like a show knife. So we went from 1000 grit to 1500 grit. Then we did a 6 micron lapping film, then a 4 micron and a 2 micron strop. Then we did a 1 micron lapping film to make this thing absolutely shine. Because a high polished blade like this doesn't perform very well, I'm actually gonna put a micro bevel on it. I'm gonna increase the angle a little bit, go back to the 1500 grit stones and just do a few passes with that, just to touch up that very, very apex of the blade, make it useful again. So I'm gonna put 3 degrees more on the sharpener on each side, and then just hit that very, very edge with 1500 grit, just to bring back some of the usefulness of this knife while keeping that beautiful edge there that we've created. And as you can see under the scope, absolutely beautiful. So again, I'm using this Wicked Edge sharpener, but these concepts are the same for any stones, for any strops. You're gonna use the same sort of approach. This system just guarantees that the angle is gonna be perfect every time. You can get the edge that you want on your knife and make it really durable. You just have to figure out what you're gonna use your knife for, select the grits that you need to get that edge, and then be patient and methodical in getting that edge. You can do it by hand with a stone. It takes a lot of skill, it takes some dexterity. If you do have the opportunity at some point to get one of these sharpeners, I highly recommend it because it really is easy once you set it up and you learn the basics. Check out the link in my description for this sharpener. You can use this discount code. I hope you found that useful, or at least entertaining. We'll see you later.